Hey, Thomas here, an aquatics expert with Big Al's, and I haven't been feeling well lately, admittedly, and I took a few days away from the office because I didn't feel like getting everybody I work with incredibly ill. So that gave me an idea for our next topic. What if your fish gets sick? Today I'm going to talk to you about quarantine tanks or hospital tanks and why they're important. You don't want the rest of your fish to get sick, or what if you bring a new fish home and he's not doing so great, or maybe he is, but you want to monitor him first. Quarantine tanks and hospital tanks are an important thing for this. What do you need for your quarantine or hospital tank? You're going to need a filter, you're going to need a heater, a thermometer to make sure you can see what the temperature is in the tank. You're also going to need a separate net from the one you normally use on your aquarium. We also recommend a net dip to sanitize that net when you're using it. And then some cover for the aquarium, like a plant or a small ornament, just so the fish that you're quarantining has a place to hide. And I grabbed some food, medicated food. I've gone with Ick Shield from New Life Spectrum. It's top notch. We do not need gravel or any kind of substrate. It actually makes it more difficult to work with. So now that we've got everything we need to set up the quarantine system, it's time to put it together. So for the setup I'm going to show you today, I picked a Marineland or Perfecto 10-gallon aquarium. I usually go with a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon. It's typically big enough for you to stow away somewhere when you're not using it, and also big enough for most fish that you're going to keep. You're also going to need a lid. I picked a Tetra LED light hood because it's nice and slim, compact, easy to stow away for later. For filtration, I like to keep things nice and simple. I use an air pump, some airline tubing, and a sponge filter. Sponge filters are really good. They do great with biological filtration. They don't have carbon, which means it's not going to pull out the medication from the aquarium. For this 10-gallon tank, I've got a 50-watt heater. This is good for things like ick, where you're definitely going to need to get the temperature up above 80 to speed up the cycle of the parasite. And it's also important for fish that require warmer water. So if you have goldfish, you may not need a heater, but for things like tetras or discus or angels that like a higher temperature, heater's super important. Just as important is a thermometer. It's going to tell you what the temperature of the tank is. Although you set the heater to a set temperature, the thermometer is your reassurance that that temperature in the aquarium is correct. I've also picked out a couple of plastic plants, nothing too fancy, just something to give a little bit of cover so while the fish are in quarantine, they're not freaking out because they feel like they're out in the open. So how long should you quarantine for? Good question. It really depends on the situation. If you're medicating, make sure you follow the directions of the medication and quarantine for that entire period, and then usually give 2 to 3 weeks afterwards to make sure the fish is in great health and there's nothing left over. If you're quarantining new fish, again, 2 to 3 weeks is a good ballpark. If they're still looking happy and healthy and eating properly after 2 to 3 weeks, chances are they're good to go in your display tank. If you're quarantining fish that need to lay eggs or maybe live bears that are full of babies, obviously you want to wait till they're done doing that before you pull them out. And even with fish that lay eggs, sometimes they want to take care of those eggs, so you might as well leave them in there until they're done or until those eggs are ready to hatch. Quarantining is not only simple, but it's actually really important. It's a great practice to do and we always recommend it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. This is a pretty quick skim of how quarantining works and how to set up a quarantine tank, so I know you might have some questions. Fire them at me. So all the products you see here can be found in the description below with links, so you can check them out there. Don't forget to check out our other videos and subscribe. We have new videos coming out every week, so we'd love to have you back. And you know, as always, just keep on tanking. Tissues for a sniffly nose? No, fish don't sniffle. My brain functions at an all-time low.